Hi class. I'm sorry that I've been a little bit out of the loop for a little while. As you recall, and as I mentioned in my many emails, I have been away at Harvard, and as a result, I wasn't able to kind of respond to some of your comments and ongoing online discussion. I have to let you know that I've been reading very, very closely all the postings that were happening online, and I'm really, really glad with what I'm seeing so far. So this is kind of a general comment about week three, which is part one of Engaging Minds that we have read, and I'll have another video for part two and this week, which is part three. First of all, we need to understand this concept, and an essential part of this course is to distinguish between education and schooling. So X do EX, that's the A, which is the stands for education, the first part of education. Ducere in Latin, so it's spelled as Ducere. So ex ducere. Docere means to lead. When you're leading, you're almost holding someone's hand. And X is off, so you're leading them off. The question there, which is not very clear, and which is what this course in part is about, is to understand what are we leading people from and where are we leading them to. So those are two essential things that I'll be talking about, and this is kind of an essential part of the course, and we will talk about it over and over again. So to lead something out of two, and those are two elements, and this that are interconnected. That's why we have in the chapter one this idea of interconnectivity connected to another thing. So an essential part of leading someone from them to is the idea of knowledge. This is why the book started with the what is knowledge? How is it? How does it come about? Why do we know what we know? And how did it come to know that we know what we know? In other words, where is our knowledge come from? That is a really, really big philosophical question, which has been an ongoing debate. So we actually, and I think Jeff touched on this in one of his postings. We need to recognize that to know is, in order for knowledge to be critical. So to in other words, to kind of get deeper to the philosophical question of what it actually means to know. Simply put, to know is to know one's or to recognize one's own limits of knowing. So to be put otherwise, to know is to recognize that there are things that you don't know, and to recognize what you do not know. So not knowing is knowledge in itself. This is one thing about knowledge. The second thing is, particularly when it comes to remembering and kind of connecting knowledge, we tend to remember not information but emotions that are linked to that piece of information. This is why it is really, really essential when we're teaching. Our teaching should be like a series of stories, because people remember stories more than they remember pieces of information. So we need to make our teaching as a storytelling, basically. And as such, it becomes episodic and not semantic. Okay, episodic. So you anchor a piece of information around a story, and it's around that story that you come to deconstruct, understand, and dig deeper into what it actually means to know. But to know in itself is linked to and this came up a couple of times in the discussion, is linked to what Paulo Freire, which we will be discussing in the next reading, what he calls praxis. So there is no he's arguing that we seem to have the false idea and the false dichotomy between what he calls theory and practice. We understood theory as an abstract idea, and he's like, no, it's not. So when I'm teaching in a classroom, let's say I'm teaching a unit or a lesson plan, I can't just stand up in front of the classroom and just teach something. I have to think, right? I have to organize my thinking, I have to organize my activities and everything else. So that idea of thinking about the unit or the lesson plan that I'm teaching is what he calls theory. So it's not an abstract idea. It is something that we actually do every day. And as such, it becomes the relationship between what we think and what we do is really, really interconnected and joined together. One of the themes and really central themes and term that I want you to take away from this course is this idea of epistemology. And epistemology is, so it's episteme and ology, which is episteme, logos. So when you put the two of them, what epistemology and the study of knowledge itself. So epistemology, simply put, is the study of knowledge. How do we know what we know? Why we know what we know? Where did it come from? And so on and so forth. So these the thing that I mentioned in at the beginning of the video, and really central to the idea of epistemology is the notion that we cannot teach, we cannot imagine, we cannot talk, we cannot even see what we do not know, right? So it's really, really essential for us to recognize the limits of what we know. So that's one of the purpose of epistemology, is to make us recognize the limitation of what we know. And this renders teaching really frustrating sometimes, because teaching, as Michel Foucault said it once, that we know what we know. We know what we do. We know why we do it. But what we do not know is what our doing does. And that's what makes teaching frustrating sometimes, because you don't really know what is being learned, right? So you can teach a lesson, and you know why you're teaching it. You even know how to teach it. But what is being learned from that lesson is something that you don't know. And that's really one of the essential thing about from the chapters that we read thus far, and this is what this is why we need. And I want you to hold on to this idea of consciousness that the chapters have been talking about, and I've seen it in the thread of the discussion as well, because Paulo Freire explains this idea better than David al. Okay, so that's the first part of the Engaging Minds. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I won't be able to respond to all the threads, but I am following the reading and the discussion very, very closely. So I will do another video soon on part 2 of the book. Okay? Talk soon.